Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. I am here with our first guest in 2025. For those who do not know me, my name is Lisa Marie, and I am your host of the monthly book chats here at Sistah Girls Book Club. And this month, we have Jade Olivia here to join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Her debut novel, big deal to me, A Month of Sundays. Hi, how are you?
I am doing well, Lisa. How are you?
I am great. I'm just so excited to talk to you. I'm so excited. I
Mhm.
love first time like debut authors. That's like my favorite. I I love it. Um I just want to give a disclaimer that I am in Philly, and if you are not a sports person, Philly just won their spot to the Super Bowl. So
One
please,
big time.
real big, because the Commanders are really real big. I'm not a football girl. I'm not a sports girl, but I know this is a
Babe.
big deal for the city. Jay is also in Philly, so ignore the background noise. Because even though I'm not on Broad Street or close to Broad Street, Philly is going to act like Philly every time. And if you know anything about Philly, the Eagles are the biggest of the biggest deal. So, with that said, Jade, let me warm you up with some icebreaker questions. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Water, wine, coffee, or tea?
Ooh.
Don't think
Probably, I know, right? Coffee.
coffee. Okay.
Yeah.
Morning or night?
Morning.
Really?
I,
Mm.
I, I gotta force myself to be, but morning is really where it's at. I get a lot of stuff done in the morning when I do it right.
Digital or print?
Print.
Standalone or series?
I do like falling in love with the series. I do.
Okay. And last one, music or quiet?
It depends, but I
Oh, no,
do.
no, no. Music or quiet? It's supposed to be
Quiet, quiet, quiet.
okay. All right.
They're always so hard for me, those icebreakers. I'm like, well, and then
Right.
no.
It's not an explanation. You just gotta pick. It's no explanation. Just now we can get into the wordy stuff. You authors, you guys are wordy. I love it. Give me all the words. Um, hi, Gossip Girl. Got people joining us. And don't forget, while you're joining us, please introduce yourself, say hi in the chat, enter your questions in the chat. We would like this to be as engaging as possible. We want to welcome you into our conversation. So don't be shy. All right. Let's get to know you just a little bit better before we jump into the book. Is that okay?
That is fine with me.
Where are you from? And when you aren't writing, what do you like to do?
Okay, I'm originally from New York. I'm from
You can't just say, okay.
Queens, New York specifically. And what I like to do when I'm not writing, I really enjoy. I like kind of doing the regular stuff that everybody says they like. I really enjoy traveling. I enjoy watching movies. I enjoy
What
listening to
genre?
music. I'm really into, believe it or not, I'm into like a good psychological thriller suspense.
That's my favorite. Suspense and horror are is my top genre.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what it is. I guess it's about just the storytelling aspect of it. Like
It's
it
so
feels different and it feels like ooh,
I
it's
tell people all the time. People
yeah,
always think that I'm gonna be a rom com girl, and I'm like, no, I am suspense number one. Something where I have to figure out the
I gotta
ending.
figure it out, right?
Me and my sister play a game, and she's like, I don't understand how you always figure out the ending of the books. I'm like, I mean, other movies. I'm like, I think it's because I read so much.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
pick up on little small details, and we always play this game of like, this is how it's going to be the end. This is who's going to be the killer. This is the storyline, and like usually within the first 20 minutes, I can guess the plot of a movie. And
Oh,
when I can't, when I'm like stunned at the end,
that's when you love it.
that's that's when it's the best.
It's the best feeling because you're like, dang, I did how did they even do that? So yeah,
I
yeah.
am a horror movie junkie. I will share. I actually have been on like this horror movie kick. Surprisingly, Prime. has some of the best horror movies that I had.
Yes, I've
I have
heard.
to share some of the horror movies I've watched. Suspense and
Please
horror
do.
with you. Okay. What inspired you to become an author? Speaking of storytelling.
Yes. So I've always been a storyteller one way or the other. I was definitely the kid reading all the books. I was definitely sneaking in all the books that I probably shouldn't have been reading. So I was that kid doing all of that. And then, in high school, I really got into writing. I was like wrote for my school paper, that kind of thing. And in college, I did the same. And I majored in journalism in college. I did that whole thing for a little bit. And so yeah, I've always been writing, but I didn't get serious about like creative writing until after college and like actually giving myself the chance to do it. So yeah.
I'm sorry, when he hears voices, he's like, what is that? Where is it coming from? I need to see. So he's like, what is going on? So
It's okay.
at my
He's so cute.
thank you. I try to hide him all the time, and he's always like, I'm going to be
He's like,
seen.
I'm here.
I'm
I'm here
here.
too.
Yeah. Very much a man. He's like, no, show the world that you have someone. You want to say hi? Say hi. Say hello.
Oh, he's like, he's
Hello.
so cute.
Okay, we're done. Okay. And so you were always writing, but how did you know you wanted to become an author? Like, how did you know you want to write a book? Because writing is one thing, and being a journalism, writing is one thing. But how did you know you wanted to write a book and become an author, specifically a romance author? Why that genre? Why writing a book?
So I think that, again, I was reading a lot of romance back in the day. I was reading the Eric Jerome Dickies. I had
Debut book.
oh, it's so hard. I'll always say Milk in My Coffee
Okay.
because to me that's just the OG. Like, I feel like that was the first.
Okay.
That was the first, like, this is what romance could look like on a page. Not saying it was perfect.
No. See, and I started with Between Lovers.
Yes, that's a second for me.
I started with Between Lovers, but the Nia Simone Bijou series is my favorite. Like that and the Gideon series are my two. Like I love all the books. I clearly big fan.
Yes.
Like I have read every single EJD book. Like I've read every book.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading it at a really young age, like high school. So I probably shouldn't have been reading it. But to say that I have started reading I'm in my mid 30s now, and I started reading his stuff in high school and still be this excited about it. That's how you know the material was just so good and so instrumental in shaping early independent romance, like that genre.
Yep.
It was just so good. And like seeing what Black romance could look like on a page.
That's what I'm saying. And of course, like the OGs in the game, like Victoria Murray, Kimberla, like all those women who really have been doing it, that was inspiration for me because I was like heavy into like kind of that like Black folk, Terry McMillan, like Black middle class kind of vibe of just like, we're all in our 30s, we have these careers, we're trying to juggle these men. Like it was just like those stories, I just ate those up even at a young age. Like it was just like something about, okay, when I'm, a grown woman too, like I'll have girlfriends to chat about, it wasn't even always the romance aspect of it that I was into, but it was like just the vibe of like, this is a grown-up story. You know what I mean?
Like I think Black literature is so beautiful because it's us telling our stories our way. So you get to see so many nuances that you don't get to see in a lot of other places because especially with the independent authors where you didn't have to stick to this box. You could kind of just write what you wanted to write.
Mm-hmm.
You got so much more from it. And it was kind of how people felt like what you're saying is how I feel as well. How people felt about 90s Black sitcoms is how I felt about reading.
Yes.
I've never seen every episode of Martin. I've never seen every
Right.
episode of Fresh Prince. I will not debate you about which show is better. That was not my thing.
Right.
I was the person with the book.
Right. Right. And I feel like specifically in the early 2000s, like late 90s to 2000s, it was just a wide array of these Black authors who would just drop maybe one or two books and you never heard from them again. And it was like, what happened? You know, I always think about that time. It was a really specific time in like traditional publishing that like hasn't been that way ever again, you know? So,
Okay.
yeah.
So then what? And so then you decided, okay, I want to try this. And what
Yes.
you loving the friendship aspect? Why not women's fiction? Why romance?
Okay. So, in all of that, I did, you know, I was reading heavy in high school. When I got to college, you know, you get into the serious literature and, you know, you're reading kind of like more literary, you know, works. And so I wasn't really as, you know, at that time, I wasn't really reading romance like that. You know, it was kind of like I still obviously had my favorites. I had, you know, of course, Eric Jerome Dickey, all those women, but I wasn't reading it as much. Then when I graduated and was really on my own, I stumbled on it was like a little known Facebook page, and this was when Facebook was kind of like, well, it's that way now to me, just really driven by groups. Like it was just kind of like we're in these groups. I mean, people are posting something, you're getting 25 comments. Like it was really just an active time. And I stumbled on a group that was really into reading. And they said, you know, a lot of people are starting to do, a lot of Black women are starting to publish their own work independently. Like Amazon is like giving them this opportunity to do it. And that's when I started reading Mia Forrester. That's when I started reading Christina C. Jones. That's when I started reading Jacinta Howard. Like that's when I started reading those women. And so when I got their stories in my hands, I was like,
Like
what?
awakening, a whole new.
It was just like, this
Mhm.
is different. You know what I mean? And again, like just reminiscent of that time, you know, back in the day where it was those stories that's like, it feels like I'm talking to people I know. You know, I'm seeing people I know on the page. And once I got into that, I was like, okay, I think I could do this. So again, I started writing kind of for myself and was just kind of like writing, you know, whatever was kind of coming to me, whatever stories were coming to me. And I had like two or three stories like that I completed that I did not release. Like I just
And that's what my follow-up question is. So let me just say, I'm glad that you did start writing. Let me just say,
Mhm.
I'm glad that you did. I actually discovered your book on TikTok. I got a targeted ad for the book, so it worked.
Oh,
So
nice.
if you, I don't know if you have like somebody doing your social media, if you're doing it yourself, but the targeted ad reached the audience that was meant to because it reached me. So, and I don't do BookTok, and I keep saying I'm going to start BookTok. So I literally got an ad, and it was like I get lots of ads because I actually don't use TikTok for reading. I use it for other stuff. So when I got a book ad, I was like, oh, this is they're pulling. I knew that they were pulling data from other places because
Yeah.
clearly I'm a part of a book club. I have book club stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
And I downloaded the sample. So that's always my rule of thumb. If I read the synopsis and I like it, I download the sample. If the sample can hold me, I'll download the book.
Do
And if
it.
the book can hold me, I'll share it with other people. That's usually my process. So nobody recommended this book to me. I actually got targeted by an ad on TikTok.
Wow.
I might still have the screenshot or I might not. And then I sent it to my book bestie who I read everything with, Alexis. And I was like, new author alert. And I love first books because I always feel like first books are where authors are the most audacious. They're not that they are, this is their work, this is what they want to write, and they're not being influenced by outside sources. And like, you know, you don't have readers yet. So you don't have anybody saying, I want to see more of this, I want to do more of that, where's this character? So you really can be who, make these characters, make this story whatever you want. So I'm really happy that you took a chance on yourself as a veteran reader, veteran book club girly. This book was amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're welcome. Like, and this is a true story. Like, I will get Alexis on the phone. I literally was scrolling TikTok and was like, oh, this looks interesting. And then I was like, okay, TikTok, you doing your thing. Because I don't post anything on TikTok. I literally post on TikTok. And everybody's like, start a book talk, start a book talk, start a book talk. Y'all wouldn't want my opinions. I would get kicked off of book talk. But that's why I haven't started. I'm like, y'all not gonna get the book y'all gonna get from me. But
listen, TikTok is a lot. I try my best to not be in the reader spaces. I try to just not cross the two, but we see everything. Like, it's not, I mean, you can't avoid it.
My stuff would be more not less go against the grain of what people of certain ideas. And so I don't know. I keep going back and forth with it. But anywho, that's how I found the book. And that brings me to my question, because I knew from reading the book that this was not the first book you completed, because it was so much material in other places. And I was like, this could be a book, this could be a book, this could be a month of Sundays, yes, this is going to be my debut novel.
Oh, that's a really good question. So to hop on your point about, yes, so to continue my point, so I had, like, I want to say 2 books, as as my husband says, he's like, you got 2 in the chamber. You got 2 in the chamber. So
I mean, because clearly is her own. Like, I'm like, Melody is a riot. She's just enough of her. I know that's a book. It has to be, because what do you mean that she's this Rich Harris with down-turned reality star with this bomb personality? She's been married twice. Like, it just jumps right into her story, but this is not her story. So it's just enough of her where it's like, I see it.
So I wrote, so I will say, I'm really, I don't ever have like an idea of like, okay, these are the characters, like this is the plot and this is the story. Like, I never go into a project like that, especially with the month of Sundays. It was literally me just like writing characters coming to me as they did. And a specific set of characters came to me in that universe, and I was writing them, and then DeAndre kind of like popped up out of nowhere in a scene that I was writing, and he popped up, and I was like, who is this person? So I was just thinking,
who this man?
I was like, who is this man? So like, I was just thinking, okay, let me kind of put this off to the side. I'll jot him down really quick, the scene he's in. I'm going to go back to these other characters that are very clear to me right now. What had happened was, I kept trying to write the original characters and they just stopped. Like, it was just like, girl, this is not your story to tell right now. And I kind of went back to DeAndre by chance, and he showed up like you see him originally. Like, I didn't do many changes to DeAndre. Like, it was very like, I'm here, I'm that dude, like, this is what I'm about. Like,
you say nigga here.
I'm that nigga. This is what I'm about. Like, I'm doing this. This is what I do. And I do think that as I did start writing him more, though, more of who he was internally came out. Like, it started out as like, this is the type of dude I am. I'm rich. I have all these, women. I got, access. I got this. I got that. And then it was like, oh, you do have, things going on with your parents. And like, you do have a really interesting relationship with them. And about like your position as this tennis player, like, who also is dealing with microaggressions. Like, there is like other parts to your story. And
you're
so
shallow and rich in basic.
Exactly. And so once I got an image of that, it was like, I knew he had everything except one thing that he really wanted. And so trying to understand what that meant, Imani then came to me. And so it was like, oh, okay,
Okay.
this is who you want. This is why you want this person. And it just really flowed as this story. Yeah.
So do you don't have any inspiration behind these two main characters, DeAndre and Imani? Like, nothing. Like they literally just came to you in.
They came to me, but I will say, like, I think my subconscious really works, overtime a lot of the times because I do remember, I want to say a few months prior to really writing Sundays, I was really heavy into tennis, like Serena Williams, her last games, like all that leading up to her retirement, all that stuff. I was really heavy into it. And I'm not a huge tennis person, but
Okay.
I just love her. Like, I just love her story. And I just love, like, how she dominated the game as this, like, fly ass Black woman. And I think somehow in the back of my head, that just like came as like, well, what would it be if it was a Black man who like was into this sport and not only into it, but like dominated it. Like he wasn't just like kind of good. Like
I
he was
have that
amazing.
question written down, like why tennis? Because
Yeah.
and it's so funny because when I was texting Alexis and Cherie, and I was texting them like, "Oh, let's do this book," and I was like texting them very just just words, and I was like, this book, reading it excited me because I am from Philly, and the greatest tennis player of all time is a Black man from Philly, and if you don't know, that's Arthur Ashe.
Absolutely.
And I grew up maybe 5 blocks from the Arthur Ashe court. So for me reading it, it was like, granted, we have not seen that in our lifetime, but I grew up doing, reports on Arthur Ashe and learning about the things that he had to go through. And tennis is not seen as a Black sport, right?
Correct.
So it was so interesting to me to like for me to know this history of tennis and knowing a Black man's going through this and being like I'm a weird person. Like I'm not a history buff, but I am a Philadelphia historical geek. Like I love Philadelphia is the most historical city in the country.
It is.
I love Philadelphia history. I love schooling people on Philadelphia history. We don't have an accent. Everybody else does. It's the first city in the don't do that. But that's neither here or there. So I was like so excited, like, oh, this is so great because I get to like have these memories of going to Arthur Ashe courts, and it's like, oh, I wonder like if any of that played a part in the development of this character.
Yeah, it definitely, well, put it this way. Because again, he came to me fully fleshed out. So I knew that tennis was going to be his thing. And I think a part of that, to your point, like tennis itself is often seen as this like white sport. You know what I mean? Like, and of course, any sport we go into, we're gonna kill it, which we do. But generally speaking, like tennis is kind of seen on the outside as like, this is like a white sport. This is what it is. There's certain rules. There's certain way you have to kind of be. You know what I mean? And to have someone like an Arthur Ashe back then who was killing records, to then have someone now like a Coco or like Serena, obviously they're just beating all the odds and really being themselves. And it's like, so what, and for me it was like, I don't really have much control of what the characters do, but as I'm writing it, I'm also questioning what they do, if that makes sense. And so it's like, yeah, so it's like at the same time, I was just kind of like, okay, what would it look like for this Black man who is aware of his Blackness, right? Like he's not walking around like, I'm kind of like, he's very much, I was a Black man from the hood, and he didn't have any sort of shame about that. So what would that look like? If he like had his way because he was the top of the top, how would he live? What would he say? How would he present himself? And so that was fun to write. That was fun.
And I love that because I love seeing Black people show up in spaces that people do not expect Black people to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing that, and I love that somebody, a mother, a sister, could pick up this book and see that and see their little brother playing tennis now, and it not be this Black people, sometimes we can have a very interesting mindset around certain things as a culture. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
people always, it's like, well, why, what do you love about reading? And especially the kind of books that you read romance and urban, and like, you don't read, I don't read New York Times bestsellers or the books that people, deem top Black literature. That's not my thing. I am looking for the girl who sat in her bedroom and wrote her book with sticky notes. Like, I want to read her what happens in her imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to read big books. I don't want to read, that's why I like debut novels. I love audacious writers. Yes, put a black man at the top, the black man at the top of the tennis. Like, yes. I remember I read one of my author friends' book, and their family owned gas stations. And I was like, now that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking
That's how
about.
you do it.
That's
That's
how
how
you
you
do
do
it.
it.
That he said, this family
You don't just work at the gas station. You owned it.
She owned a chain, and nobody knew that the girl owned a chain of gas stations.
That's gotta fly.
It was like, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. And I was like, I've never even would have thought about this, but that's how you do it. You don't even know I'm rich. I'm rich. I'm rich. Because when you think about oil tycoon money, you think about Arab people.
Yes.
It's so interesting that we have been taught to think in this way. When you think about Black people and richness, you think about sports, you think about entertainment.
Right.
And even then, it's like we are programmed to think about it in a certain way. So I love when books reprogram my mind to say, you know what? Hell yeah. I want to, hell yeah. Like, like, I never even thought about Black men being in tennis, but
and having a vibe kind of like,
oh,
a vibe like the dude we know from the street. You know
like,
what I mean? Like, he's like,
this could be a basketball player, but no, he's a tennis.
Exactly.
He still got
Yes.
space. He still
Yes.
got arrogance. He still
Yeah.
got it up. He comes to the games in diamond. I love it. I love how the culture was there. Okay.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
So yes, I love that. So yes, so to you, I love that. And like I said,
Thank
we've never
you.
seen that in our lifetime. So for me, it was like, it also made me question, why have we not seen that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's interesting. It's because again, like at least, and I can only speak for myself. I think that again, because I then knew what I was getting myself into. As I told you, I'm not into tennis. So I then had to do my due diligence, right? I was like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm representing this sport well. Like this is like I remember talking to a friend of mine who is really into tennis, and I was like, okay, I'm writing this player. I'm writing this tennis player. He's really good, but he's not just like good. He's like at the top of tennis. And with tennis, it's like these rankings, and like depending on which game you play, like that could affect your ranking. And the ranking from last year is different from this year. Like you could go down a whole rabbit hole. And so I was like, I need to have a general understanding
How to
to
fall.
like, yeah, how this would go, like what his schedule would look like. So yeah.
Okay. Well, now that we answered that question, I'm sorry. Got a little tangent, but very a very exciting tangent. The meet cute.
Yes.
Loved the meet cute. Them meeting at the wedding, her not supposed to be at the wedding. How did you come up with, once you met DeAndre first, you saw that he had all of these things, he was missing Imani. How did you determine how they would meet? Because that was an interesting meet cute of, what, this girl not even supposed to be in this wedding. She is just a distant friend of the family. We put her in this a very socially awkward person in an even more awkward position.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I had a few characters in mind beforehand, so they're all kind of part of this friend group, where they're kind of interconnected in different ways. And so I knew like a lot of what their interaction was going to be at a wedding. And once I figured out, okay, it's a lot is happening with this wedding specifically. And I just kind of wrote out the scene and was like, oh, this is where they meet. Because even and I don't write linearly. So like I was writing and just going, and I remember a scene I wrote between Imani and DeAndre, and they were talking about when they met. And I don't think it showed up in the book actually, but it was like,
Cinematic.
he was like,
Go ahead, cinematic. Go ahead. Let me see what happened.
but it was but it was basically a scene of him saying like, yeah, because when you were at the wedding, such and such, and I was like, oh, they met at a wedding, and so that's where that kind of came from.
Okay. So let me ask you a question because this has been a big thing in coming in the last few years. And I would like your opinion. Would you say that their meeting at the wedding, he was smitten right off the back? Was this love at first sight or simply two people attracted to each other and curious?
I would say for DeAndre, it was love at first sight. I would say Imani was curious.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, just because of, again, like I think Imani represented just something new for DeAndre that he didn't come across yet,
See, and I toyed with that because, and that's why I asked the question, because sometimes with men like him, you only want what you can't have. Like you only want what you can't get. And he did, in his character development, we did see that no, in 4 years, he still was interested. But it's like, was he only interested because he only got to have this much of her? So I was curious as to how that was going to play out because it's like, sometimes when you get the whole, and then you be like, now, wait a minute, hold on.
Wait a second. Okay. I do think he had a very, like a lot of men, he had a very conquering mentality, right? Of like wanting to have her, like he was like, once he set his eyes on her, he was like, no, she's gonna be mine. There's no like question about it, that kind of thing. But I do think
he's the 10 toes down. Okay.
he was ready.
He said,
he's like, no, you're gonna be mine.
He said, oh, baby, don't worry. I will pay the rent for your friend, and you still finna get the keys to this palace. Okay. My mama said, what? My mama said, what? Hold on. We finna. I loved it. Okay, I loved it. We finna go fix this right now. Why you ain't told me that? You acting strange to me, and because my mama said something. Hold on, real quick. Let me hold your hand while we go tell her this. This is my relationship. Like
he was ready. He was from the beginning. But I do think their story really was a lesson for him because it's not just about conquering what you really want. You also have to like maintain it. You got to get to know it. You got to make sacrifices. You got like, it's not just like, this is my wife now. You know what I mean? Like it's like you got to actually build a relationship with someone. Yeah. So yeah,
okay. I like that. But yeah, I was into it. I was like,
he was that dude. He was about his business.
I loved it. You could just say when she woke up and he wasn't there, baby. You could go ahead. I see you got on my t-shirt. Yes, I do, and I do. Okay, and I do. You lucky I got the chain on as well, because I do.
I was gonna say because a few people I know who've read it. And again, I don't really go into like other spaces reviews or that kind of thing. But people who I know who come to me and said I read it, I loved it. They're just like, oh my god, like but it felt like he was so into it, and I was like, well, Imani, once she agreed to it, she was down. She was like, I'm here.
But he also had 4 years, and I think that was important. That because me personally, from what I've read and knowing about trauma, if he would have came that hard at Imani 2 years into her healing journey versus 6, she needed those 4 years to get her life on track
together.
Because if not, he would have overwhelmed her with that alpha mentality of just do, especially coming out of the trauma that she did.
Yeah.
Because she would not have been able to decipher if that was coming from a sincere place or just another person trying to control her life.
Yeah. Yeah. And she had to really, I think there were parts of the scene, and I don't know how, again, I'm a little removed from it now, but there were definitely parts of the story where it was like you saw her kind of going back and forth of like, do I do this? Do I not? She knew she loved him, but I think it was definitely, again, that like, is this really what it should be? And it was that for
So
sure.
speaking of that, my question specifically toward Imani, we meet her years into her healing journey. She discussed that she has trauma. We don't really know what until the end, but I want to talk about, the evolution of trying to do the right thing as women in our mid 30s. We have this perception of trying to do the right thing with the right person. Michael was the right person on paper. What do you feel is the importance of communicating this transition to the reader? You see this struggle of a person who we know has been through something. Clearly, we don't really know what it is yet, and now everything she does is trying to be on the straight and narrow in the right thing. And then you have this person who is a big person who has a lot of gravity and is just pulling you into orbit. And it's like, so what we're like, as a woman who's experienced some life, what were you trying to communicate with this doing the right thing, choosing the right person, and what that looks like in development of life?
Yeah, I think that, I think we are, I mean, simply our lives are just a series of choices, right? And so I think that it would have been kind of easy for Imani to settle, right? Like she
I love
had,
I love that word.
it would have been easy, like she,
Why? Because people don't look at Michael was the catch.
he was the catch. He was the catch,
So what? So a lot of people would say, "Oh, she wouldn't have settled. She would have been happy, right? Because
right?
he was a good man."
Mm-hmm.
So
He was a good man, but he wasn't her man. You know what I
I
mean?
have
It
a
was.
messy question for that later too. You want me to
I know
get
you.
into it now, or you want me to save it for later? You want to get
You
into
can save
it?
it for later. You can save
Okay,
it for later
because I want to.
because
I'll be messy a little messy.
I think that Imani, like all of us, she really is coming from a place of, again, she wants to do the right thing, right? Like I think because she went through what she went through, just in her life, it would have been easy for her to kind of like fall in line with Michael's perception of her, of how he kind of wanted her in his life,
Maybe Imani's
like
gonna be a good first lady, and I don't mean that in a that just means like
right. It just, yeah.
it would have taken so much away from her as her like a free
Exactly.
spirit. I just want to wear
Yeah,
belly chains and paint. And
exactly.
it's like, now you got to
Exactly.
be buttoned up at church 6 days a week, which is nothing wrong with going to church 6 days a
Nothing
week.
wrong at all.
That is
But you have to also see where she was coming from, right? Like
that
it's
level
like
of
that.
sacrifice. And I think what's interesting is that a lot of people. Let me be politically correct. Politically correct.
Oh boy.
Every relationship is going to take sacrifice. She
Mhm.
sacrificed being with DeAndre too. His lifestyle was also not one where but it was more conducive to who she was naturally
She
as
was.
a person.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely more like, I think I think just the way DeAndre's life was set up, it kind of like provided her with that space to grow, like within like this life that he built for himself, right? Because it is, I mean, yes, he can do everything, but there's structure in that too. Like
Yes.
it's like you have access to what you can do what you want. And I think because of that, it gave her the freedom that she really truly desired and needed. You know what I mean? Like as you said, she didn't need to be pinned down to get another situation fitting into another person's vision.
Yeah.
And I think DeAndre's life and just how it was set up for her, it allows her to live in her own vision, with someone who just so happens to like want to be there with her. So again, Michael seemed to be the right the right person to go with, but in actuality, like she's really, I think, growing the most with DeAndre.
Agree. And but I think it's so interesting when we see this play out. It's like we are not taught to think about that as settling. or making that the making the safe choice is settling, right? You made a safe choice. You made a choice that's better because you know you're going to be protected. This person's never going to hurt you. This person doesn't have the same
Mhm.
temptations being thrown at him. And it's like,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Right.
but I'm miserable. I can't paint. I can't dress how I want. I can't do the things that I want.
Right.
So I have all these constraints now and all of these people looking at me with expectation. And this is not what I
Yeah.
signed up for. But when she said yes to Michael, I was like, girl, now you're saying yes to that. And that's scary.
It was, yeah, and the whole time I feel like she was just like, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" And it's just like, again, I've had women in my life who've been in those situations where it's just like they're going, "I don't want to do this." Like, but it feels like you can't turn
Yeah,
back. You're just
it because on paper we are taught to this is the right thing to do. This is a good man,
Mhm.
and it's like I learned my lesson. A good man does not always make a good partner.
At all. And not for you.
Not for me. Like
Not for
you have
you.
to
Yeah.
determine, like what you need as a woman in partnership, especially if you're, I get it, divorce, you get divorced, but if you're really considering a lifelong commitment to a person, which he was early on in the story, like he
Yeah.
mentions proposing within the first chapter. So it's like,
Yeah. He knew what he wanted to do. And
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 she,
to be fair, like I feel like him and DeAndre were the opposites on the same coin because they both were really into her. They
yeah,
were really like wanting her in their lives. But again, it just was not. But again, it's like Imani has this pressure of like wanting to do right, wanting to like, okay, this is my second chance at life. Like I'm here. I have my aunt who's on board. I'm with this man who I know is like patterned. He is not going to mess with me. And so she ran to that before she couldn't anymore.
stability is an illusion. It's an illusion. Both DeAndre and Imani had childhood trauma from the ways they were parented. That played big roles in their relationship. DeAndre with his dad, the sacrifices his dad made. He had a respect for his dad, but he also resented his dad in a way. And then Imani with, wow, like that was a shocker. Was not expecting that. You are not this person who raised you, that you knew as your mother. I always find it even more shocking when it's the mother that's not the mother. And it's like, because it's easy for the dad not to be the dad. But for the
Yeah.
mother not to be the mother, it's like, didn't see that coming.
Mhm.
What was important about us seeing that, and how do you feel these truths were there to help navigate their lives but also their relationship? Because they both found, like, she found this out in the development of their relationship. This is not news, information she came into the relationship with.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that it's one of those things too where I was going back and forth with how to like portray what they came into their marriage with. You know what I mean? Because it's always something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the beginning, because it was such a fast,
That's
it's
her
such
fault.
a,
That's her fault. Just
it was like we get married, we doing this. This is what's happening, and so I think because of that, it was like, okay, this was really rushed, guys. This was like this wasn't planned out necessarily as it could have been. And so with that, again, like the choices we make affect everything around us. It's not just, okay, I'm choosing this person and it's us against the world. It's like you guys are coming together, which means you guys have to address hard truths, and I knew that again, to a certain degree, both Imani and DeAndre really wanted family. That was like really in their core that they wanted to have family, like whether, from their partner. Imani, she really wanted children. She was in that lane. And so I think it was like, well, why what is it about family that really is a desire for you guys? And so again, for DeAndre, it was that missing element and that kind of like odd relationship, strained relationship with his father. And with Imani, it was kind of being essentially an orphan, you know what I mean? And trying to kind of navigate that as two people who are finally together, it's like, oh no, it's definitely going to come up. Like you guys are going into a relationship with abandonment issues. So it's going to come up. So that definitely, yeah, that was a part of it for sure.
And speaking of abandonment issues, DeAndre gets abandoned again. And this again, this book was sad, Jade, and I think I'm just realizing that while I'm asking you these questions. There was a
Yeah.
lot of sadness in this book. Oh my gosh, do I want to ask this next question? Okay, I wrote it, so I'm going to ask it. DeAndre losing his best friend was very sad. Like that made me cry more than
Yeah.
even like the other stuff. But that made me cry because we met him so early in the book. Like we meet him immediately, and he's this larger than life party animal who everybody loves hanging out with. He clearly has all of these people who love him. And what importance do you feel this unfortunate event played in the development of not only the DeAndre and Imani's relationship, but also Imani and Eve's friendship? Because that played an important part of the book further down the line.
Yeah. Well, I will say that was a really hard scene for me to write. And there was a part in me specifically writing this story where like I knew I had to eventually write it and I did not want to. Like I I waited till the last minute, but just because I knew it was going to be really hard for me.
Yeah.
Um and but what kind of, I guess, took me through to writing it was I knew that as much as we loved DeAndre's best friend, he was also his crutch in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
You know, he was kind of like he was that friend who would, kind of nudge him certain things like, hey, like, you know, stop messing with her. Like you gotta be serious. You gotta do this. You got like you want to retire. You like it was little things he was saying as his friend that like DeAndre, I think, was kind of shoving off. Like he was like, yeah, it's not going to be that serious.
Oh, health though. Like I always think that's interesting because then you didn't take care of yourself.
Exactly. And I think too, there was a pride element in that, which can happen, especially when you have like friends who are different socioeconomically, right? So like there's the friend that's like has everything, used to everybody asking for everything. And I think Randall was really his friend. Like he's like, no, that's really my boy. Like I'm not gonna just like
Use him.
use him, right? So there was that element
His mom
too.
was doing that enough.
Right. So there was that element because again, too, like DeAndre didn't have a lot of friends. He had a lot of people around him. He had women, he had, people of course who admired him, but like he really was like a big fish in a very small bowl. Like it was kind of like he was I'm just here living my life. And to a degree, like, yes, I'm moving the way I want to move, but like I don't really have anyone to confide in for real. So Randall did represent that for him.
Mhm.
But I knew that pushing him in that direction, as much as it hurt, it was going to push him to then move and make that move that he did with like, okay, now I really got to like make sure I'm with this woman. Like I got to really make sure. And again, could he have, maybe gone to therapy first? And could he have,
Yeah,
yeah, he could
like I
have.
said, he was already dealing with the abandonment issues, and I feel like that exacerbated those abandonment issues because death can do that, especially unexpected deaths. It's like, wow, I'm really alone now. Like my dad is in prison. My mom is more my manager than my mom now.
Right, right.
And while I do have all these people, I'm abandoned again. I'm by myself again and having to navigate a world that is not meant for people like me.
Yeah. And exactly. And like Imani, I think for him represented that space where none of that mattered, right? Like it was like she was just into him as himself. Like she was really into his core. And I think like in a lot of ways, like she represented home for him. They're both from the same neighborhood, so there was an element of that too. And she was just like somewhere soft for him to land. You know what I mean? Like it was just like she just represented something so different than what he was used to. So
And for Imani, there were some dark scenes toward the end of the book.
Yeah.
But we as readers learn more about her past in New York, what transpired prior to this new life, why she felt she needed to be on the straight and narrow. Was it difficult to write about these occurrences? Basically having a pimp.
Yeah. Really, that's what it was.
Experience that sexual trauma bonding with the other women that were there. His death still was like, it's just so much trauma, and we don't know until the very end. So we don't. It's hard to have empathy for somebody. Well, we shouldn't be this way, but we are this way as humans. We don't show empathy until we really know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's why people are like, oh, when you see people, oh, I'm not praying for you till you tell me what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it was one of those situations. I'm not saying for me, but I know that it's like one of those situations where it's like at the last minute, she was like, yeah, so when I had moved to New York to pursue this, I met a man. He said he was going to help me. And so when you said you was going to help me, I didn't really know if you was going to help me, because the last time I met a man that said he was going to help me,
this actually went down.
This is what happened. So let me make sure that this is not what you're trying to do too. And it's like, it made people understand why her hesitancy was so strong with DeAndre. And it's like, I see why she don't trust her own decision-making skills, because granted, give yourself some grace. You made a decision in your 20s, you're in your 30s. You should know better. You know better now.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we don't really discuss the process. We always discuss the process of retrusting other people once they break a relationship. But what happens when you break that bond of trusting yourself?
Right. And like, I think, I think a lot of us walk around with trauma that like we actually feel like we don't have to address. And I think a lot of decisions that I've kind of met different people who've made decisions in their lives. I've known people who like will say the craziest things to me, and I'm like, and they'll kind of say it like, yeah, I just, did that. Almost as if like, yeah, I just, walked across the street and got a cup of coffee and I came back. Like, it's so casual, and you're like, whoa,
baby,
like where did that?
Baby, go see the lady and go see her soon.
Right. I was like, where did that come from? And so the positioning of where it was in the book kind of represented that. So it was, again, she wasn't really active. You're not actively thinking about what I did in my 20s. You know what I mean? You're like going into this life kind of like you're at war with your current reality and what you did experience. And so I think like up to that, she was like, okay, I'm right here with you, DeAndre. Like, I'm here, I'm doing this. And then when it felt like all of that slipped away, it was like, oh my God, like this is actually what my biggest fear is. And then you kind of discover, okay, this is what she's going through. This is what she went through. And so, yeah, I think it really was like that situation with Jasmine and like all of that really triggered it for her. And it was like, okay, now this is actually what went down.
But was it hard for you to write about that? Like, was it hard for you to go to a dark place to write about something that's happening all the time, but people are ignorant to?
It was really hard. It was really difficult because, again, I had just come from writing something so happy, like her with this man of her dreams, and he loves her and she loves him, and like it was like, yes, like she's in her dream, she's in what she's always wanted and what she's always truly desired. And then to kind of go back in that place was really, really difficult. It took some time for me to kind of like flesh it out. Like that wasn't just like a one-stop thing. So yeah, it was tough.
Well, you did a really good job, and it was written in a way that was definitely more like, it made me pause, because I think about how easy it is sometimes to pass judgment when you don't know what somebody's going through, and you push them to make decisions. And I'm not even talking about like our friends, but like now with us hearing and having access to so many people's stories, we think we always have the full picture, and we don't. So it's easy to want to push people to make decisions that seem like they make sense. And sometimes we don't understand why they're so apprehensive about making the decision or moving in that way. And I think this book did a really good job of showing she would like her. We knew she was apprehensive. We just did not know why. And then when you find out why, it's like, yeah, I wouldn't trust a man who told me.
You're like, wait a second.
I survived this one time. If I put myself in a position to be dependent on another man again in my life, it would have to be for sure, and you never can be for sure with another person.
You can't. But you
want to be, but
you can't. But I will say to that point though, because I knew that was what was in Imani's head. I knew that I had to make sure everybody knew that DeAndre didn't do it. You know, like it was like I needed to make sure that people knew that like DeAndre is exactly who he says he is. Because it would have been easy to do that. It would have been easy to kind of leave everybody else in the dark and been like, oh, you know, yeah, I knew he was playing her the whole time. You know, like
right. But then it wouldn't have been a love story.
Right.
Then it wouldn't have been a love story. Right. It's a romance novel. So I was never even on that track because I'm like, this is it was marketed to me as a romance novel. Therefore, this has to be true. So if you would have marketed it as like a mystery or some other stuff, I would be like, okay, maybe. But I don't even think my brain went there because I'm like, romance means happily ever after. It means they're going to figure it out. So,
but he also had to let things be, right? Like he also had to let her go through her process. Like this wasn't something he could talk his way out of. It wasn't something he could buy tickets for, buy another piece of jewelry, buy a car. Like he had to let her do her thing with that.
Because they both needed therapy, but that's neither here nor there. Some readers have voiced that they wish some of the issues addressed in the book came with a more definitive conclusion, like Jasmine Child's paternity, DeAndre and his father's relationship, and who is Imani's mother. Do you feel these details are important or they just served as barriers for them to overcome to get to their happily ever after?
I do think I did go back and forth about like Jasmine and her place in the story.
We meet her from the very first chapter too. So it's not like she was a character who popped. It's not like she just popped up out of nowhere. It's like we meet him and he's with her.
Yeah.
So we knew her from the very beginning.
Yeah. I think sometimes in life too, we have people that we kind of come across who serve as lessons, right? Like they serve as lessons to our life. And I think that considering just how loose of a relationship he and Jasmine had, I kind of was like, is this really going to be more than what it needs to be? Because again, like I think because DeAndre, he made all these decisions, kind of these snap decisions about him and Imani. It was kind of like, I'm just going to do this. I have you. That's it. He wasn't thinking about what other people around him may have been. Yeah, he wasn't thinking about what other people around him were looking at, you know? So it was kind of like, this is your lesson that you needed to actually like step back and take care of a few things first, which he didn't.
Jay basically is saying, I told y'all he wasn't the baby daddy, and this ain't Jasmine's story. Therefore, what do you need to know who her real baby daddy is? It's not him. He is the main character. Wrap this shit up.
That's part of it too.
She did a lot nicer. But for those of you who were gonna not get on, basically she said Jasmine was a side character. Why do you need to know who her baby daddy is? Make it make sense. She said she saw it in the reviews. She said, make that make sense. Is this Jasmine's story or is this Andre's story? Why do you need? How would you even know? If I told you who her baby daddy was, how would you know who he was? He was the part of the story. Why do you need to know this information? It wasn't him. We're done. Thank you so much. You're so sweet. I fixed it for you. And you can fix it on TikTok. I fixed it. There you go. Because you said that so eloquently. She was just a part. She was a thread in the blanket that we pulled, and it unraveled some. And Imani was the border, and she put it back together. Girl, he said, "Jess, what do you want to know?" If I said it was bro, who would you know who bro is? No, you wouldn't. So why does it matter?
That's a point.
I got you, girl. I got you. For the people who needed spoken eloquently, you did that. For the people who speak ignorant, I got you. Okay.
I appreciate you.
So yeah, okay. And same with Imani's mother. Would y'all know? Was this story about Imani's dad and his wife? How would y'all know who this woman was? And the aunt, I do have a bone to pick with the aunt. I feel like the aunt could have been a little bit more empathetic towards Imani.
Yeah.
I ain't like that. She did not put herself in this predicament.
I know.
Her brother, wife put her in this predicament by lying to her. That's not cool. Okay. On a higher note, readers could leave with one defining message after reading A Month of Sundays. What would you want it to be?
I think I definitely would want readers to know that you don't have to be punished for the choices you've made. And you don't have to settle.
I love that. Will we be seeing any of the supporting characters in future works from you?
Yes. Yes. You will. It's Port Springs has a variety of characters, and so I'm excited to get people to learn more about those characters.
anything on the, since you got 2 in the chamber already, anything coming soon? Like, should we be expecting any releases?
It's yes. So I am writing. Definitely
you already have something written. I'm gonna have to call your husband because clearly we're not on the same page, but he and I are on the same page. You already have something written.
It's things are coming. Yeah, I'm always working. They want
to know who's next. Is Imani's best friend Life with Aaron Ray? I got, baby, that's a lot of vowels in a very short period. I had to. That's Aaron Ray. Aaron.
Okay. Hi, Aaron. Okay.
Is Imani's best friend? That's what she wants to know.
Kaylee is sweet.
So now that we're talking about Kaylee, it's time for my messy bonus. I cut you off because you knew what the question was, and then you said no. Later, it's later now. Now it's later. Wouldn't you say on paper, Michael and Kaylee would be better suited for each other?
On paper, they could be.
You have paper, don't you?
But y'all don't know Kaylee like I know Kaylee.
But you have paper, don't you? Don't you have paper?
Yes.
Do you have a pen? You need a pen? I got a pen, and now I have a pen, and you have paper.
Yes, I have paper. It goes. I'm
on my way. Be there in a second. Bring your pen. I would love to see that book. I'm not saying what you have in mind. I like messy.
Look, I'm just saying. These people.
Life is messy because life.
I've been with these people for a while, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. I see you. You see how she avoided answering questions there because we come to the end. I was so nice to you.
It's coming, Lisa. You will know. You will
Michael will
know.
find him a good old church girl. He don't need nobody. Maybe Imani's circle is not even a circle. So don't even do that. Imani's circle is a period. Okay. It's not
No,
you. What did Michael do to y'all?
Michael is a sweet gentleman, okay? Michael is kind.
Is Kaylee not a good church girl?
Kaylee, we all have sides to each other though. So it's like this is, the characters you see in Sundays, you got to remember they have lives outside of just that story.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, everybody knows I found you on TikTok. Where can everybody else find you to keep up with these stories that are coming that might have Kaylee and Michael as a couple?
I never said that at all.
Okay, that's all right. It's called manifestation. It's called putting it out there and letting it come back. That's all. I'm just saying.
I am mostly on Instagram. I'm trying to get better at it, y'all. I really appreciate people being like patient and yes, but yes, yes, Instagram is where you'll find me.
And it's just Jade Olivia on Instagram.
Jade Olivia writes.
Jade Olivia writes on Instagram is the best way to keep in touch with this new author who has more works coming that won't tell me what it is. So sad. So sad.
You got it. You've met a lot of the characters now, so
I'm not writing my own spinoff, but sometimes my imagination, she just going. She sees something.
It'd be yep, it'd be there.
It'd be there. I'm like, sometimes I shock myself. I'd be like, girl, now why would you be having to talk to girl? Why would you say that? Why would you? I'm not going to say that to these people out loud, and that's why I don't have book talk. Because if I said, they would be like, cancel her. I would get fired from my job. Like,
I'm not gonna lie. I will say, to your point, I had never thought of Kaylee and Michael together. I hadn't thought about that one. That's interesting.
I think Stephanie is up next.
Really?
I think Melody would be up next only because, yeah, it's just enough. It's just enough information just right there.
You're into Melody.
So the way you are describing Kaylee is how I feel about Melody, and I always go for, because I am known to be a extrovert person. I'm really not, and I feel like me and Melody are kindred spirits in that way. If I'm at a party, I'm the life of the party, but I'm also home 92% of the time by myself with my dog.
Okay.
But people only see the 8%.
They only see what you want them to see, right?
People only see the 8%, because if I'm out, I have a really big personality. People like talking to me. Where's Latrell on the dance floor? I'm that person.
Yes.
But that's 8%. And even like when I was heavy into social media, it's like, I'm showing you 8%. And it was like this perception of me that it's like, that ain't it.
Yeah. I put a pin in that, Lisa.
We're going to chat. Actually, I might just come get you. I might just come get you. I might just come grab you one day. Coffee shop, get you all.
Get me all messed up.
All
get more intel.
All rounds up. And just be like,
I gotta, once it is complete, y'all know. Y'all be the second one to know.
Pull up on you with a venti calf. Hey girl.
I'm just checking in.
It's out. Yeah. Okay. All right, we gotta wrap this up. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Lisa, this was great.
Answering all of my very detailed, in-depth questions. Yes. I know we weren't able to talk about everything. The book is 500 pages, but I feel like we hit a lot of good main points.
Yes.
So, and thank you just for sharing your imagination with us. Like I said, wonderful debut novel. I am a the longer, the angstier, the better. Okay. That's
I
just
appreciate that.
for
Thank
me.
you so much.
That's not every reader's dream, but it is always my dream to pick up a 500-page book with angsty people in it, because I love the push pull of will they, won't they, we're not supposed to. But that's just me. And that's what drew me into this book. I love the abnormal meet cute. I love having a sports romance that was not football or basketball. And that is no shade to other sports romances. I just like that this was refreshing. Something as a reader, it's a lot I have seen done before. And this was something I had not seen done before. So that's just, it really blew me away. So thank you so much. I am so glad that you followed your heart and wrote the book. And I look forward to keeping in touch and speaking with you in the future.
Yes, thank you so that thank you. I thank you. I really appreciate that. That is so encouraging. Thank you.
Well, if you need some more,
Just
got it.
hit up your line.
Call me. We This was our first chat of 2025. Thank you, Sister Girls, for kicking it with us. Please come back. We already have our February book picked. It will be announced soon. And it's getting a little kinky. So, I hope y'all like it and come back in February and rejoin me to talk to another author. Have a wonderful week. Happy Sunday, and hope to talk to you guys soon.
Bye guys.